The TEFL Commute, Season 6, Episode 4, in which we discuss the enduring appeal of robots in teaching. Let's get going.
These young people are studying in a new way. Class in spelling, it might as well be arithmetic or algebra or grammar, or in fact anything involving the use of words or symbols. Each student is using a teaching machine, a device which creates vastly improved conditions for effective study. What are teaching machines? How are they used? What can they teach? Who prepares the material they teach? And how does this material differ from textbooks, lectures, and educational television?
So, Shaun, did you know who that was speaking just then?
I do, yes. Yeah.
Why don't you tell our listeners who was speaking just then?
I'm presuming it's Skinner.
Yeah. It's a video about. It's a video with Skinner speaking, the famous B.F. Skinner, the Skinner of
pigeons.
I was going to say Skinnerism. I was going to say Skinnerism, but it's audiolingualism that he's associated with. It's behaviorism.
It's behaviorism. Right.
It's the behaviorism Skinner thing. Yeah. And I'd never actually heard a clip of him speaking before, so it's very interesting. This is a good introduction to our topic today, isn't it, Shaun?
It is. Yeah, teaching machines. Or I guess
teaching machines or robots, I think is the title, isn't it? The title?
Yeah. But obviously, Skinner's talking about teaching machine, which essentially is a robot successfully used with pigeons, but still waiting to find out if they work with humans.
Exactly. By the way, everybody, if you're just joining us now for the first time, this is the TEFL Commute. It's a podcast that's for language teachers, but it's not about language teaching. However, the topic comes up, and I'm your host, Lindsay Clanfield, joined by...
Hi, I'm Shaun. Nice to have you back, Lindsay.
Yes. Nice episode, the last one. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. Teacher versus therapist.
It was good to be able to talk about teaching for a while since you weren't here.
I know. Well, I had to come back and bring us right back onto kind of other things.
Alluding about it and not actually talking about it. So, robots. Teachers. Teaching machines. So teachers won't be replaced by robots, will they? I mean, this is...
Well, let's put a pin in that and come back to that in a bit. But let's go back. I mean, the whole idea of this, the clip that we heard at the beginning was the teaching machine, which I suppose was sort of the beginning of the idea of robots in education, like the actual first physical manifestation. I have a little bit of a story about this. The first teaching machine, the first one, what decade would you guess it was in? Shaun, the first teaching machine?
What you're suggesting by that is that it wasn't Skinner's idea.
No, in fact, it must have come before it's credited to somebody else. It was come before then. Why don't you identify a decade when you think the first kind of machine came into the classroom or was introduced into education for kind of teaching?
So if Skinner was talking in the 60s, wasn't he? So I'd probably have to go. I mean, because you've got World War II, where that's really where computers kind of kicked in, isn't it? You know, so Turing was doing all his work. Somewhere between the 50s.
Well, it's even much earlier than that. It's in the mid-1920s. And the name that I'm looking at right now is Sidney L. Pressey. So Sidney L. Pressey was the original inventor of a teaching machine. Now, the teaching machine, what it did was administer multiple choice questions. So you can see, maybe we'll put a picture on the site in the show notes. So the machine was, the teacher would make a series of multiple choice questions. The machine would administer them, and it would move only when the student got the right answer. So the tests apparently showed that learning had taken place.
So essentially, is that the first ever CALL lesson, like computer-assisted language learning?
I suppose.
Because that's essentially what CALL was in the 70s and 80s, wasn't it?
This was in America, by the way, at the Ohio State University, and it kind of was. So this, I guess, it would be a call lesson, but it was more like testing.
Right.
It was a self-scoring machine, but it would only advance if you got it correct. So therefore, it was called teaching. The idea then was taken forward by B.F. Skinner, who was responsible for a different type of machine. This one was called Glider, Glider. I'm not sure what it stands for. That was the clip that we heard at the top of the show there. So again,
how was that different?
Well, I think it was more sophisticated. You would enter stuff and it would give positive reinforcement. I'm not quite sure how it did. Here's what I've got. It says provided automatic, immediate, and regular reinforcement without the use of aversive control. The material presented was coherent yet varied and novel. The pace of learning could be adjusted to suit the individual.
So aversive control, i.e., you got an electric shock if you got it wrong.
I guess there was no less. Yeah, I guess it was. What I'm looking at the picture of, it's like this kind of yellow box where you would put the paper in, and it would kind of like come out and so on.
So these are teaching machines. But they're not. I mean, are they computers or are they robots?
They're kind of. They don't have an artificial intelligence, do they? So they're more kind of like computers, I suppose. But I suppose they're the big.
I suppose we're going to get Asimov's law out and start discussing what a robot is.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think they're the beginning of an idea that has never been far from popular imagination and the press, of robots or computers replacing teachers, robots as teachers. Do you want to let's fast forward a little bit, because you've got a few ideas, you've got a few examples.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny you say it's not far from the press. It's really interesting because obviously we do. It might not show, but we do research for the podcast, and obviously you know of stories of robots, but then you see the press, and it is essentially in the press all the time. The idea of a robot taking over, not necessarily a language class, but an education class. And I mean, you say fast forward. So I think many people might remember so in Korea, I think it was in 2010, there was a big deal about robots teaching language there. And in fact, Time magazine put that robot in its top 50 inventions.
Wow. What year was this? What year was this?
It was about 2010. In about 2009, 2010, you've the Asian countries were kind of pursuing robots. So you've got you had Saya, Saya in Japan.
Which was the one? Which was like a big white blob with a kind of head on with a camera on the top,
which is forever reminds me of a Doctor Who episode. Actually, that's Korea.
That's Korea.
The Japanese robot, they were aiming to try and replicate a more human look, whereas the Korean robot looked like a robot with a blob on their head, which reminds me of an episode called The Library from Doctor Who. But that's okay. My geekiness coming through. And did you know, just taking it fast forward with right to now, I think it was last week or the week before, Saudi Arabia actually gave, not quite an education, but they gave a robot citizenship. So this human idea of robots going through. So I think we kind of, there is this kind of drop between Skinner and obviously Cole developed. But then in the early 2000s, we've got the Asian countries pursuing robots in teaching. Kind of worked, didn't work, disappeared again, and now it seems, this year they seem to be back on the agenda, don't they?
Well, they definitely do. I mean, there were some current examples. Something called Amy in New Zealand. Did you read about that one?
Yeah, I was. This one, Amy, is actually going to be a language robot. I think it's just a new project that the New Zealanders are trying out, and you see it in a number of countries where there's kind of ideas of robots coming through to teach lessons. What was the one you were talking about?
Yes, there's one that I found, and this is like really, really recent. Just to show, so I'd be really curious, actually, before we get to this last one, I'd be really curious to find out what has happened to Saya and those Korean robots. Like, are they like languishing at the back of a classroom covered in dirt or dust? Are they still being used? Have they been repurposed for anything? I'm gonna have to do some. I didn't do the follow-up reading. I've
No,
just,
we
I've
just
just read
we
about
got
the
ready.
original stuff.
We should when we get the angels on, we'll do a quick Google and see if we know what happened. What happened to
Okay.
the Korean robots?
But anyway, the latest one that I had read about, the sort of the newest one, is something called L2TOR. It's a European project. L2TOR should be pronounced L-Tutor. Okay, so ltutor.eu. And this is like a language teaching robot. And I just to show you how it's capturing still the imagination, I have here in front of me the L-Tutor press and media section of their website with all the recent articles that have been about it. So just listen to some of these headlines that just to show that this whole, like, it kind of, you can trace a line back to Skinner's opening, stuff about children learning in new ways. Here we go. How robots could help children pick up new languages, from the Huffington Post. This is August 2016. Social robots interact naturally with young children. August 2016. Robots might be able to help Germany integrate refugees. NBC News 2016. How robots are dispelling myths and caring for humans. The Guardian, June 2016. Something called Interbrand, Synthetics, Swipes, and Strokes, Tech's Impact on Tomorrow's Language. The Times, end of 2016, Robots Take Over Teaching Languages. The Atlantic, January 2016, When Class is Run by a Robot. Linguistica, 2016, January, Can Robot Teachers Become the Next Generation of Language Tutors? So as you can see, again, robots that teach refugee children the lingo in the Sunday Times. Love in a Time of Robots from Salt Magazine, end of 2016. So, I mean, we have here, it's obviously still very much in the press.
It is, yeah. This is interesting. There's a lot of things coming through there, and I think what strikes me is almost what this idea of teach is, because I think there's this idea that they can. The robots don't necessarily have being a teacher is being kind of a bit you're having empathy and understanding the emotion of the students, and I wonder if robots are more, perhaps we say teachers, but maybe it's better to define those kind of things as classroom assistants. I don't know.
I think it is better to do that, but you can see how they're desperately trying to take the next step when you see them saying, like, they can identify with children, they can interact naturally with people, they can help them pick up new languages. I'm not sure. I still view it as like an extension of the teacher in a different way, in a helping way. But then again, I've never interacted with one of these robots, so I don't know firsthand.
I wonder. I mean, I do wonder when they say interact, what that means, because.
I mean, I maybe this is a point where we should mention another bit of jargon: the Turing test. Yeah. I don't think any of these robots pass the Turing test, not even close. I mean, they're not trying to, but they're pretty far off. The idea that someone might be fooled. The Turing test is, let's just explain it. The Turing test is the test developed by Alan Turing, one of the earlier computer scientists, World War II. And the Turing test was, could a piece of software or a robot fool humans into thinking it was human?
That's
right,
it is. Yeah.
That's the Turing test.
Hence the imitation game.
And so,
the name of the movie.
Exactly, the imitation game. Or there was another movie about it recently about like female robots.
Really?
I can't remember what it was called. It was a really cool movie. I'll look it up during the break.
According to internet, the robots are still being used in Korean classrooms. That's maybe one of our, we do have people that listen in Korea, so maybe somebody can say this.
Maybe someone will share with us on our Facebook page,
because I think we might talk about it later in the podcast. Part of me thinks, I think because I've never been taught by a robot or seen a robot interact apart from in language in kind of technology fairs. I've never seen one in a classroom in that sense, but it seems to me that there is very little difference between. I was struggling to see the difference in this case what a robot would be and say what the Skinner's teaching machine would be, in the sense that unless it can think for itself and react, then it is only going to be a kind of stimulus response kind of thing, isn't it? Which is one of the things that's dogging the development of AI as a language tool, in the sense that it can't think that way. But
No.
I was, I mean, you do. So we are going on. We, obviously the predictions according to the press now then are that robots will replace teachers. I'm not talking about language teachers, I'm talking about teachers. In 10 years. I mean, there's a lot of articles in newspapers. I think they're trying to be scare stories, but you've got this idea of inspirational robots.
So. I think so. I agree. Yeah, definitely. Speaking of inspirational robots, I think this is a good time to bring on our little inspirational bot, and let's hear the angels.
Imagine that you are hardworking, never doubt that you're amusing, believe you are unique.
So, Lindsay, coming back to our Korean robots, I think one thing we probably should have clarified is they're not really robots.
No, that's true, actually. Yeah, the Korean robot was the body of a robot, but it was like a delivery mechanism because the head was like a camera showing some wasn't it like a native English speaker on the other end of that camera, just talking to the children?
Which is no different to things that are going on already, because you say in Uruguay you've got that going on in the Plan Sebel system and stuff like that,
exactly,
which is not using robots, but there's no real difference in terms of I think the teachers were based in Singapore and being beamed into the classroom, so it was a labor saving thing more than anything else.
Yeah, and to meet the demand, I think it was because there was a high demand for English there.
Yeah, but
anyway, another thing that has been solved while we were listening to the Angels, thanks to our producer James. The movie I was talking about robots and the Turing test was Ex Machina, which I do highly recommend. Excellent kind of cool new movie.
It's got the guy that's in Star Wars in there. I know that. Anyway, Star Wars. That's something.
Speaking of robots,
I mean, you and I are geeks. We've admitted this before, so I thought I'd see if you know where these films or where these robots come from in terms of television or.
So this is a quiz you're going to give me. You're going to give me a quiz
name a robot, and then you tell me which film or TV program it might be in. All right. So let's get started with an obvious one. HAL.
Okay, that's easy. 2001: A Space Odyssey. And is it back in 2010? No, it's just 2001.
It always amused me that I never read. When I was a kid and I first saw it, I think it's like the fact that HAL gets its name by moving IBM back one, which I always never. I was like, oh yeah.
That's very cool. Oh, that's a deep cut. All right.
Okay, let's go a little bit more difficult then. Gort, one of my favorite.
No idea. No, I don't even have to pause here. No idea.
I mean, there was a terrible remake with Keanu Reeves in it, but it's The Day the Earth Stood Still from the 1950s. There's that really big robot that comes to try and tell the Earth that they're destroying each other. Probably very relevant these days. Perhaps my favourite robot and one of my favourite all-time films, Robbie. As in Robbie the Robot.
Robbie the Robot is Lost in Space.
He does make an appearance there, but it's in the film for me, it's The Forbidden Planet, and he also makes a guest appearance in Gremlins.
Very good. Okay, Robbie the Robot. All right, keep going.
And if I add the paranoid android, it kind of gives it away.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
We'll probably come back to in terms of something else. Bender.
Now that one I don't know. That's not the robot. That's from. No, Battlestar Galactica.
Futurama.
Oh.
Okay. Now so none of those really. You're not known for their language prowess. So getting more languagely. Data.
Okay, that's Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Did you know that Data was fluent in French?
Oh.
I'm geeking the geek here. And final one then. C3PO. Any ideas on that one?
Of course, yes. Star Wars. All of the Star Wars.
So Data speaks French. C3PO is obviously a translator with it. And if we go to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you probably more known for translation is the Babelfish. So I think we've probably talked about.
Yeah, but it's not a robot in the way. I mean, this is. I think this is what kind of links the robot idea to language teaching. I think we've discussed this once on an episode a few seasons ago. Is the idea that science fiction has interpreted language learning in the future in two different ways. One is the C3PO route, which is you have a robot who translates for you. So you go around with an interpreter, like travelers would have done, the explorers would have done in the past. And so C-3PO serves that role in science fiction, or any robots like him, who you'd have a robot and they would translate for you. But the other one is the Babelfish, or in Star Trek, the universal translator, which is the kind of thing that's embedded into your head that allows you to now instantly understand all languages and speak all languages. And I think in terms of real life, it's that vision of science fiction that is winning in terms of like what people are hoping for in translation.
Well, essentially, over the last kind of month, we seem to have got there, don't we? There's suddenly this big.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet was full of, oh no, Google have invented not necessarily, but Google have invented the Babelfish, and I think once one company gets there, they're all there. Did you see that? They're not, I don't think they're quite out yet, but the new headphones that Google have
no,
developed.
I haven't.
So they've developed. They had their big product launch thing a few weeks ago, where they brought out their new phones and everything. And one of the things they're bringing out is the Google's in-ear headphones. I think because obviously all these tech companies are concentrating on headphones these days, as well as the phone.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
I mean, allegedly, once you're wearing these headphones, and if you've got your phone with Google Translate on it, it will simultaneously translate language into your ear, which is the Babelfish, isn't it? That's what it did in the Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah. That is, isn't it? What happens? So does this other person have to be wearing a pair as well, so that?
To be honest, I don't know. I presume that I don't think so. Well, if they want to translate back to you, they'd need to, I guess.
Yeah, because if you can understand, but then you want to say something, it would have to go the other way too.
Go the other way, yeah. Although I guess it could come out your phone. Because you could, Google Translate on the phones.
Yeah, that would be
weird.
But I guess they're hoping that everybody would have these headphones on and they would talk, and because then I would talk to you, and if you had the headphones on, you would understand me, and you would hear the translation.
So once they get these things sophisticated enough, that's it, is it?
That could be the end of it.
Give up and look for another profession.
I know. Sounds like it's time for another break. Now I'm feeling exhausted and useless.
Producer James here with a quick message to say thank you for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to show your support for the show, then you can help us in just a minute and it won't cost you a thing. Think of a friend or colleague you know, someone who you think would enjoy listening to the program, and send them an email or a message to let them know about us. With your help, we can reach even more teachers. Okay, on with the show.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to another round of TEFL fights, in which our two competitors duke it out to decide who's right and who's wrong. So what are the Queensberry rules? Well, each fighter will have 1 minute to argue their case and do some serious damage to their competitor. In round 2, they'll have the chance to follow up and land the knockout blow, persuading the judge, that's me, that they've managed to win. So in this episode, the guys have been talking about teaching machines. So in this bout, our brave pugilists will be sparring over this topic. Robots will replace teachers by 2050. So going first and arguing for the topic, it's Shaun. Seconds out, let's go.
We all know the meme that goes, technology won't replace teachers, blah, blah, blah. With the type of classroom robots as we've talked about in this episode, this is probably true because they're little more than video machines or conduits for call-like learning. However, recently, 3 things have convinced me that robots will replace us. 1, we've already seen a societal shift in language learning. Millions of people are now learning through apps and bots such as Duolingo. Bots are becoming commonplace. 2, AI is developing fast, meaning machines can learn from behavior. Just take a look at what happened with Microsoft's AI earlier this year. And 3, adaptive learning is trendy. And when something is trendy, people put millions of pounds in it to try and find a way to use it. If all these three things come into robots, they'll be able to sense facial expressions, react to what we do and say, and maybe even read our minds. At this point, they will have the same, if not better, skills than a human teacher. And with an ever-increasing supply issue, it's obvious that robots will be the best things to fill that gap. So much so that, in fact, people are predicting that this won't have happened by 2015. It will have happened by 2027. However, don't worry. When robots do replace us, some will argue that this is a good thing, as teachers can no longer be blamed for any failures in education.
Okay, thank you, Shaun. Okay, arguing against the topic, it's Lindsay. Are you ready, Lindsay?
I'm ready.
Okay, and over to you.
Okay, so I didn't really script this because I'm going to be speaking from the heart, and my proposition is that not only that robots should not replace teachers. It's okay though they will not, but they should not. First of all, and they will not. Secondly, so I'm against this. The Turing test, whether or not people can recognize like a machine for a human being, has not been passed. Westworld, Blade Runner, and other sci-fi movies notwithstanding, we're not close. We're not going to be close in 2050. We're not going to be close in 2150. Okay, so teaching is a helping profession, such as medicine, social work, religious counseling, etc. And that means it's anchored in relationships. It's not just about passing knowledge on and information. There are student-teacher relationships that convert information into knowledge and knowledge into wisdom. So this is more than just delivering information, which is what a robot can do. The other thing is that the teachers have to make lots and lots of decisions when they are assessing students, conducting lessons, planning. These are like made very, very quickly. They are not just about delivering information. They're about constantly reacting. And lots of these decisions are not just about information, right, wrong, etc. They are moral ones that involve the
Okay, thank you. That's your time. Okay, so that was the end of round one. So let's go over now to round two, where the fighters get a chance to come back at what their opponent said. So beginning round two, it's Shaun. Over to you, Shaun.
There's little to come back on. Actually, I think Lindsay should have scripted, and he should have listened to what I said. He was placing an argument in robots as they are now, but he knows as well as I do that the technological advancements in robots means that a number of things that he said will be true in the near future. I mean, 2050 is some time away, and we're seeing great leaps in technology. And while he cites the Turing test as a moment in time now, in the future, I can see that an artificial device quite easily making and beating that test. And when he says, yes, it's a caring industry and so on, yes, I don't disagree with this. But once robots have those skills, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but once robots can do that, they will be able to replace us.
And that's time. Thank you. Okay, Lindsay, it's over to you.
Okay, right. So I agree that automation is coming, and automation is around the corner and for many professions. But that does not mean it's going to be for all professions, okay? So, I mean, the other thing that Shaun says is, well, maybe they haven't done it now, but they will be doing it in the future. I mean, I've read somewhere that the definition of insanity is repeating the same scenario over and over again, expecting a different result. That's exactly what we've been doing with technology and things like robots. We've been repeating the same thing, like just around the corner, it's just going to happen, and so on and so forth. Technology offers a lot to us, but it doesn't offer as much as human people do, and that's not going to change. I don't think we're going to reach a point where we will have automation of a lot of things, but social aspects, medicine, teaching, education, and stuff like that will.
And that's time.
Is this rebuff just a repetition?
So that's it. That's the end of the fight. So you've heard some great arguments from both of our combatants, and it's time now for me to make my final decision as to who has the eye of the tiger and who's been left spread-eagled on the canvas. So it's a very difficult decision. I'm torn between good arguments on both sides. I think in an historic first in TEFL fights, I'm going to declare this a draw on points.
No!
No!
Oh!
No!
doesn't have the...
No. I was clearly way ahead of Lindsay this time round.
That's the referee's final decision. If you have any
The
issues,
decision is final.
Oh
no!
you have to appeal to the International TEFL Fights board.
So I just have to have
Oh
a
my
rematch
gosh!
then, I guess.
Oh, that means that Shaun's still leading me on the leaderboard.
I'm still leading.
Oh
2-1.
gosh! Okay.
Thank you guys, and thanks for everyone for listening. See you next time on TEFL Fights.
Okay, Shaun, it looks like we're coming to the end of yet another episode.
Yeah. Well, yeah. After the disgust that I now have for the referee not making a decision, I'm off. I think that's it.
I think we'll get over it. Shaun, do you want to tell our listeners where they can find us online?
Oh, well, they can find us, the website, TEFLcommute.com, where we have show notes for each episode, as well as a list of all our previous episodes. They can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, again, surprisingly, TEFLcommute.com. And we're also on Twitter. So a number of ways that you can actually interact with us and about the episodes. And, of course, you can find the episodes on any of the usual podcasting places. So, Lindsay, I'm off.
I think I'm off too. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
See you, Lindsay. Bye, everyone.
As your commute is coming to an end, here's an activity you can take into class. This activity is suitable for lower level learners and especially good for younger learners. Put students in pairs. One person is the robot and the other is the programmer. The programmer has to give a series of simple commands which the robot must carry out. To keep this from getting out of control, explain that the robot can only move its upper body while sitting down, so it can't move around the room. Pre-teach some language for simple commands, such as pick up, move, touch, put down, open, close. Students practice giving commands to their robot. They then swap roles and repeat the activity. You can find the instructions for this and our other end-of-pod activities at our website, www.teflcommute.com. You've been listening to the TEFL Commute, an original podcast produced and presented by Lindsay Clanfield, Shaun Wilden and James Taylor. Don't miss out on any episodes by subscribing to us on iTunes and by visiting us at www.teflcommute.com.
Nice! He's down!